And I'm going to change up the order of the work session real quick, and let's just go to number 2 first, because I think number 1 is going to take longer than number 2. So, Hunter, if you want to go ahead and come to the podium and approach the council and talk about the Planning Commission meeting on April the 6th. As I understand it, Hunter, there's probably going to be a lot of people that want to participate in that meeting publicly, a lot of citizens that want to have a say. And we're concerned that we would have too many people, too large of a gathering, and therein lies the problem.
Right. And in addition to that, we have an issue where I think the governor has allowed some meetings such as this where essential activities can be handled with phone. Well, they haven't made that allowance based on our interpretation for public hearings, which would be a part of the Planning Commission. So I've looked at bylaws, our city code, state code, and like many things we're dealing with right now, this is just not addressed. So I think the mayor and city council have the authority over the facilities certainly, and the ultimate authority as exercised by state code to cancel this meeting, and that's our recommendation.
Right. Hunter, I understand that maybe some of the burden of making a decision for this particular parcel of land may be falling on the county engineer. Is that correct?
There's a lot of layers to this, so ultimately that may be something that comes into play.
Well, my question is then that if this person doesn't hear from the citizens prior to any decision that they may have to make, the people that want to be heard the most may not get heard. Yeah. That's a little bit of a concern of mine.
And I'm not sure exactly what the county's done with their planning commission meetings and made a decision on that. I think they're day and during the day, so we can check into those we're kind of in a tight spot here. There's been nothing declared on what to do in this situation, but I don't think we can have a public hearing but turn the public away.
Yeah. I know we can't do that, and so my thoughts are, I don't want us to have a negative impact where we're trying to do something positive. And secondly, are there any other agenda items that would need to be considered because, there may be a sunset on an advertising of a hearing or anything such as that would be taking place on an April 6th meeting?
On the April 6th, no. It's minor subdivisions in this one case, so no sunsets. No, and they would all have a public hearing aspect to it. So even hearing those right now, we would have a challenge hearing those. I just,
I want to make sure that there wasn't something that had to be voted on or else it automatically was denied, and then unintentionally something may have been denied.
Sure.
Or something may have been passed that may not have passed. You don't want some unintended consequences.
Right. And on this month, there's not. Now, our deadline for the next month is tomorrow. We've already received 6 cases. We're continuing those cases just like we're going to have that meeting, and we'll move these 4 along. Depending on the volume, it may be something we need to have a special meeting and kind of split those agendas in 2 whenever we catch up and get ready to have those meetings. But this month, we do not have an item that way. And if we're still in this situation, then in the May meeting, we can address those in any way we can.
Okay. Council, do y'all have questions for Mr. Simmons? Okay. We do have, to let you know, item 5. We put it on the agenda so we wouldn't have to add it and walk it on. So, Council, would you like to, and we can wait until we can talk about it now. Do you want to go ahead and just leave this on as the request to the City Council to council the April the 6th Planning Commission meeting, because they don't have the authority to council it?
Yes. And I apologize, kind of a last minute. I didn't realize there was a work session scheduled at 4 p.m. prior to that meeting. If you can make that motion, just so we're clear, both the work
I'll
session
go ahead and write in there, request City Council to council the Planning Commission meeting. And there was a Planning Commission work session?
Yes. And that topic was one-time splits of land, known at the county as family subdivisions, what to do in those situations.
Yeah.
So that will need to be postponed as well.
Ms. Hanks, do you know if since a work session is not a voting meeting, and do our bylaws state that a work session needs to be counseled by the city council? I mean, we can do it out of abundance of caution, but,
And
okay.
No, and Planning Commission established that, so I think by default, canceling their meeting is going to prolong that, but just out of abundance of caution and letting the public know.
Okay,
I would make that request.
okay. Is there anything else on that, Hunter?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Mayor Wilson, once again, before we get to discussion of pandemic measures to be taken and just considered, did you have another item or so that you want to discuss?
Yes, it is. One of the things I was going to go over is the likelihood of having essential employees that are newly created go directly to agenda for next council meeting. And Mike Allison has come prepared to discuss tree trimming and linemen, which I texted each of you. And then the other things I was going to go over are some of the budget cuts. Ask if y'all wanted to discuss parks during the work session or during the meeting. And a lot of the updates that I was going to give you during the work session, I thought of this at the last minute, reached out to you and Councilman Robinson, is to do my mayor report, which it's a lot of information, important information, but instead of doing it at the beginning of the council meeting, do it after the council meeting is adjourned and everybody leaves.
Right, yeah, and I appreciate that, Mayor Wilson. So just to reiterate what she's saying, as opposed to giving her report, she can give her report at the conclusion and actually after the adjournment of the meeting. But Mr. Allison would like to brief us on a couple of issues within the utilities that we need to discuss for potential placement on the next council meeting.
Correct. Thank you guys.
We've got about, let's say, just put a little time limit on this. It's 10 after 5, and I would say that we're going to have to discuss these pandemic measures for at least 30 minutes. So if we can wrap this up in maybe 10 to 15 minutes.
So if you guys remember, when we went out for bid on our tree trimming, it came back at about 4 times what we had budgeted to do the whole system with a contract crew. So we sat down, several of us got together, looked at it, Public Works, utilities, and came up with a few solutions. And I'm not sure, I can make sure you guys get a copy of this. I had sent it to HR and the mayor. Hopefully we can forward it to you. Obviously, we looked at rebidding it, separating the system into 4 pieces, rebidding it, and trying to only do like 25% of the system a year, and then just having it rolling. Does give us some limitations as far as what if something comes up, if we're trimming 2100 and all of a sudden circuit 2200 needs work. How do we manage all that? Second option we looked at obviously was just keeping the electric crews doing it, which is kind of what we're doing right now. We're just getting the hot spots, anything that comes up that we've really got to take care of. Not staffed for that, and that kind of leads into the second point second little discussion I want to have. Third option, and I hadn't really thought of it till we sat down and started actually looking at our options, was seeing if we could get a tree trimming crew in-house. My first impression was it was going to be very expensive to do, and it is, costly. However, it's actually less than what we had budgeted for the tree trimming. If we were to try to bring a crew in-house, and this was all things I was going to take to the personnel board, but various things have happened. They've kind of canceled a meeting, so I just wanted to do this at a work session. If we were to create a tree trimming crew in-house, 2 tree trimmers and a crew foreman, a crew leader, using one of the squirt brooms that the electric department has, and actually purchasing one of the knuckle booms like what the Public Works guys have, it comes out to about $235,000 a year, $236,000 a year. We have $275,000 in that budget. Obviously, this year's half gone, so if we did something this year, it would be much less than that 275 that we have budgeted. And then, and that included leasing the knuckle boom truck for 3 years. So at the end of that 3 years, the savings actually goes up because you're not paying that lease any longer.
So that included a lease purchase
That
of it
included the
then?
lease purchase of that knuckle boom. So at the end of that 3 years, obviously that savings goes up because you're not paying that lease purchase any longer. The nice thing is they would be in-house employees, obviously take a lot of pride in their work. They'd be assigned to the electric department, but be available to the other departments, Parks and Recs, Public Works, golf course, if they needed them to go take a tree out or something like that. And we could manage it all in-house instead of having to go out for bids and contracts. So I was actually, and this is using existing job titles. It's using a crew lead and 2 equipment operator 3s. So those are the budget numbers that I used. I included some of the overheads that we have, vacation, standby sick, you know, all that kind of thing, and the vehicle maintenance. Try to get as much of an accurate estimate as I could before I brought it to y'all.
You loaded the labor numbers?
Yes, sir.
With benefits and?
Yes, sir. So we're trying to give you guys as true of a picture as we can of it moving forward. If we can move forward with that and let me know what y'all want to do.
Did you put together a spreadsheet of that by chance?
I have it in a Word doc. I'll make sure, and I'll kind of tweak it and get it in a spreadsheet and give it to y'all.
Can you give us the grades for the?
I
the
don't know
three?
the grades off the top of my hand. Leslie's not here, but it's a crew leader and 2 equipment operator 3s.
You included chainsaws and pole saws?
The first year I
and-
included $20,000 for their equipment, their PPE, and all that kind of thing. So the first year is the labor, the new knuckle boom truck, the lease to own on that, and then all their PPE for the first year. Just dawned on me, the one thing I didn't include was a little bit of PPE adjoining years as they wear out uniforms, things like that.
So that 236 per year included all of the equipment and the lease purchase. So in the second year,
The second and third year would be about 220 because you wouldn't have the total expense up front, but you would still have the lease. The third year, and then I did include a 3% labor rider. And then on the fourth year too, it came down to 167, but I didn't include the 3% on that, just kind of as a ballpark.
and then that 275 that we've budgeted, how does that compare to, say, the last several years? Has it been that number
It has, which is.
for quite a while?
It's been around 250 to 275, but again, we have the issues that we had when we decided to cancel the contract with our vendor. We weren't getting a lot of value for what we were paying for.
So what will so they'll have a knuckle boom. Is that going to be a truck-mounted knuckle boom?
Well, it'll be like what they use to pick up garbage, for debris, lawn debris that they send around, and then they just take it back down to Section Street.
So that's the truck and the
And the boom.
And the
yeah,
boom.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. You know, they have these, for hurricane cleanup, they have the big knuckle booms sitting on the back of these massive,
Yeah, it would
you
be
know,
a
looks
dual
like
axle.
massive, you
yeah,
know,
just like what
dump
they have
trucks
now.
or something.
Yeah, just like what we have now. We wouldn't have to spec out anything special for them. And then electric has a squirt boom, boom truck that they'd be able to, that's certified to be within approach distances that they would be able to use. So that would last another few years.
Council, questions?
I remember one, and I'm not trying to go backwards here on old information, but one thing when we brought the company from Indiana in, I think, to do the tree lighting, one thought was that would free up our folks to do some tree trimming. If we add an extra group to do the tree trimming, would there be a possibility of bringing back the tree lighting in-house, or is that still something that you feel like would be?
I'll let Jessica
Prohibitive.
and the mayor talk specifics, but one thing we are definitely looking at proposing next year, as of right now, is to do that in-house.
Okay.
Do you know how many people our current tree trimming contractors put on the job?
We had, part of it was, we had contracted with them for 2 crews of 3, and the most we ever saw was 4.
Okay.
We had, our contract with our previous contractor said that they would supply us 2 crews of 3. The most people we ever saw here was 4.
Yeah. So my question obviously was, can a crew of 3 keep up with everything that needs to be done? Or are they going to be coming back and saying, we need another 3 people, and in which case we go to 572,000?
Well, we would have these crews assigned to us, so they wouldn't be
Or
chasing
472.
storms, they wouldn't be doing other things, they would be in Fairhope year-round. So looking at what we have, 1 crew, the first year, they might need some help from some of the electric crews because we are so far behind, but moving forward, they should be able to maintain it.
Comments?
I think if
Yeah,
you,
I guess me personally, I'd like to, maybe try to rebid it and break it into parts, and I'm assuming that we do some tree trimming in-house as it is.
We only are staffed up and have the equipment to do emergency stuff. If it's causing an outage, we will go out there and have somebody trim just the leaves back or the branches back.
Right.
But that's going to last about a season. We're not going and doing like a 3-year trim or anything like that. It's just get it back, and next year we may have the same problem in the same spot.
So what is it, Robert?
I'm, like you said, I'm just afraid that 3 guys won't be able to do it after the first year, and then it'll become 2 crews the following year, and it's just,
And something else to consider, and we've talked about this too, but during this pandemic, I mean, everything's going to change, and everybody's going to be hurting. It might, my concern is between today and when that happens. So it's possible that the total will come down if we did rebid it, but what do we do between now and, yeah.
The cost of tree trimming really started going up the last few years ago with all the NERC requirements, FERC requirements for the transmission systems across the country. The big companies like Asplin and all those guys, I mean, they specialize in doing this. They're very good at what they're doing it. Our little system of 62 miles honestly isn't that much of an interest to them. They want to go cut 300 miles. So I think that's part of what we saw in the $1 million bids we were getting. So, to be able to divide it up into quarters, it's even less of a interest to some of these larger companies. So, but, I mean, if that's your direction, we'll go forward and see what happens.
I'm actually interested in pursuing this. I just don't want to have to, make this investment. Once you lease purchase the knuckle boom, you've got that cost. You don't want to hire people and then lay them off. And then I just hope that we could keep it up.
Yeah, we looked at the
I
work,
want to be in favor of this.
we looked at the workloads, and between Jeremy Morgan, myself, and Richard Johnson, we are very confident that 1 tree trimming crew, once we kind of catch up, will be able to maintain it going forward. And that included even the occasional go cut a tree at the golf course or something like that.
I think if you could staff it for roughly the same cost as you're paying to sub it out and bring the lighting back in-house, I feel like you would save enough money to make it worth pursuing.
And that, again, I'll let the man Jessica
Right,
talk
I
about that a
know.
little bit more, but we
Yeah, I
are,
appreciate you on that.
I'll save my opinion on the tree lighting, but I do think, I do want to bring it in-house.
Yeah. Well, you are looking at a time that the tree trimming, the trees do stop growing about that time. The growing season's over, so maybe that they could transition into that and save a good bit of money, Jimmy.
I mean, I'm just thinking if you had both of those, you'd save money and you'd have it in-house. And I think that's how you would have to justify it, is if you can do it cheaper by bringing it in-house than you can outsourcing it.
And I think if we bring it in-house, we definitely have people take a little bit more pride in what it looks like.
When we did sub it out to the contractor, did he have a crew running every day for the year?
They would go chase storms occasionally.
What?
They would go chase storms, like when Hurricane Michael came in, they went and worked on that, and then occasionally they would get called off to go do other things, but for the most part, yes.
Okay.
And they were almost keeping up until we started having issues with them. So,
So you did have issues with them. It's not just a bid price, it's
Oh,
had some other-
the reason that we canceled our contract with them was the issues that we were having with them. Again, we had contracted for 2 crews. They were sending 4 people instead of 6. They weren't running all their trucks when we asked them to, and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So we actually canceled our contract with them early because of some of the things that they were doing.
Can we come to a consensus, or even if we're split, we'll give direction, whether we want to postpone this for discussion, or place it on the next agenda, or anything in between?
I have another question, Michael. Was there any bid requirements that might have excluded some local companies, or were not used locally?
We tried to open it up as much as we can. We actually had a pre-bid meeting, and it was very well attended. We had Alabama Power came in from Mobile. We had about 7 companies that came in for the pre-bid. I found one thing on the bid forms I had wrong on there. Basically, I spec'd it out to cut from ground to sky on all of them, which would have been bad. So we revised that with an addendum, but we only had 2 bids, even though we had about 7 companies that came to the pre-bid. So, and the feedback I got was a lot of them didn't want to mess with 62 miles.
What's your pleasure, council?
I'd like to see it.
I'd be in favor of adding it.
I mean, I don't want to be the one to say it because everything's going so swimmingly at this point, but I mean, I'm concerned about adding any new expense right now. I mean, not saying that this isn't needed, and if this was a month ago, I would have said thumbs up, let's do it. But I mean, I'm of the mindset right now that we kind of need to take a wait and see approach for the next month or so to kind of see where we end up before we start agreeing for.
Yeah, this is essential. We've cut
You either gotta outsource
major
it or you
things.
gotta-
This is emergency electric. I mean, this is,
But I mean, how have we been getting by between now with this, I mean, between the
it just ended.
cancellation of the contract? I mean, is
We've-
that something that?
We've lucked out in that we haven't been in growing season yet, per se. So now we're starting to see the trees grow a lot, and we've had a few instances where we've had trees getting in the lines, and that's just going to increase from here out.
No. How long does it take to get the truck in?
I'd have to talk to RJ. He said we could borrow one until then.
Yeah, I'm not, again. let me be
Yeah, I
clear.
understand the timing is not the best.
I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just, thinking we need to be cautious in any new expenditures at this point.
Well, let me just say that the risk, though, of not trimming trees and you short out a transformer, and it could cost you how much, Michael, for a new transformer?
New transformers, probably overhead transformers, you're looking at $1,200 plus labor to install it. If it's a pad-mounted transformer, you're looking at anywhere up to $20,000.
That's one of the risks that we run. Robert, keeping.
Typically, the fusing, the protection is going to protect that equipment. Your biggest risk is going to be your reliability. If they happen to cut out the circuit that Thomas Hospital's on, or something else like that, or the wastewater plant, things like that, when you get trees getting into those circuits.
I do want to point out, this is not a new expense. This is expense that's already in the budget, but the bid came in at 4 times higher than what we budgeted.
So was the 4 times higher the 275, or we had budgeted?
No, the
275?
lowest bid I got was almost $1 million.
The bid was $1 million.
Yeah, we have 275 budgeted.
So we're looking at 236 versus $1 million.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like a no-brainer. No.
That makes
That's
things a little simpler, doesn't it?
It does.
So if your direction is such, I'll get you the details and have it on the agenda.
Yeah, bring that to us, and then we'll also have that other bite at the apple for the purchase of the equipment, and that'd like to be put on as an agenda item.
Okay.
The other thing is with the trees that land on the wires themselves, it sucks the power out of the wire, which actually is a pretty good expense over a course of a year of that happening without staying on top of it,
That's true,
Yeah.
as far as what it costs.
yeah,
Just something to think about.
you can.
That kind of leads me to the second point of discussion. We had one of our linemen, junior linemen, retire in October. We have had that job posted since then. We've had one qualified applicant apply. He was offered the position, accepted it. When he told his present employer they basically bumped his pay, so he declined our position. The only reason that he agreed to come here was his wife is an anesthesiologist, so the salary wasn't the highest thing on his priority list. Leslie spent a lot of time looking at the ranges for the line series in the area with the local municipals. And I've got the data here, and I'll get that to you, but I just want to see if you guys are willing to let me look at either the next work session or the next council meeting to bring you a proposal to evaluate the line series from groundman up to lead lineman and where we are in relation to our neighbors and things like that. Basically, we have 2 experienced journey linemen, and I have 1 journey lineman that just topped out. So out of the 4 linemen, I have 2 that have any experience. So we're trying to hire a journey lineman, and in the last 5 months, we've had no luck whatsoever.
I can answer that, Michael. So if you want to put it on the next work session, feel free. I will say that we don't know where we're going to be in 2 weeks.
I understand.
And if it becomes difficult to have meetings, it may be that we don't have a work session. We tried to avoid one at this meeting, but we were unable to. And it may be the same for next time, but, you know, if we can keep things, we're trying to just keep things to an absolute minimum. So we'll, you know, and I understand that, you know, your labor is essential to you to perform the functions.
Right.
but-
The concern is, you know, if one of those 2 guys were to have to leave for whatever reason, got sick or whatever,
Yeah.
that we basically can't do a lot of the things that we're doing now.
You know, I don't know what the world view is going to be in 2 or 3 weeks. It may be that, you know, we get some directive from the state that we can hold video conferencing or something, in which case that may mean that we can just have the meeting easier, but there's a lot of trouble with doing that too.
Oh, I agree. So, but yeah, looking at the rough data, we are definitely a little bit low compared to our neighbors. I'm going to take the really high one out of the equation, but even looking at the ones that are around it, we're definitely a little bit low on the line series. So, which is, we've
And they're
had.
looking at total package benefits and all. right?
We're comparing only municipals, which generally have the same, you know, kind of health insurance. I know ours is a little bit better than like Riviera's, but we are looking at all that,
Yeah,
yes.
I think our employee cost, even the new employees that have to pay, is still substantially less than other municipalities.
Yes. So,
Okay.
and then what I'm not including in that is, but I want you guys to be aware of it, is we're not including like the private companies and the contract crews. They're paying $40, $45 an hour for a journey lineman. And, you know, it's a trade-off those of us that chose to stay in the public sector make, and we have to be conscious of that, but we can't compare to other municipals.
Sure.
So, you know, even on the engineering side, engineers, private companies make a lot more, but working for municipals, I generally know I've got to check every 2 weeks. So,
Okay. That
But
wasn't a
that's all
subtle
I had.
hint, was it?
Huh?
That wasn't a subtle hint, was it?
No, sir, I'm perfectly
Engineers and
happy.
Private companies make a lot more?
No, I am perfect.
Fact.
I am perfectly happy where I am. I am enjoying
I'm
this.
picking, I was kidding with you.
So, but that's all I had, and if you guys have any questions for me about those 2 things.
Any other questions for Michael?
Thank you for being here.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you
Thanks,
guys for your
Michael.
time.
You're free to go if you like.
Wash your hands.
Do we have the water, are you okay on the water stuff on the agenda?
Yeah, let me look real quick and make sure. Council, does anybody have any questions? We've got the item number 6 for the wells. Item number 8. You want to go over that real quick while you're here? That is the consecutive replacements. This is where we're rescinding the bids, right?
On item 8? Yeah. So item 8, basically from Jay, the water model is showing us that we need to be at a max of about almost 10 million gallons, and we're running about 9.2 now. So if we can fix pump 1, that'll give us that extra capacity between 770 and 100 gallons per minute, which is, in Jay's words, far more important than washing of the water tank. So that's why he wants to take that money from washing of the tank to put it towards the rehabilitation of the wells.
So, well, if you're rescinding the bid, I'm a little confused.
So right now, the bid was for wells 1 and 8.
It was 159,960, right?
Right, and then what he wants to do is just well 1. Oh,
It was just for well 8, and now we're wanting to rescind it and do well number 1 and number 8.
with the added money from the,
Correct.
from the water washing. And that'll get us closer to that 10 million gallons a day.
And you want to take the money from the 3 million gallon tank cleaning and painting of $100,000 out of that?
Correct. We want to take that budgeted money, put it back towards the rehabilitation of these two wells.
What is your thought on the cost, that 159,960?
That was the bid for both, which is above what we had.
Do you think it's a reasonable bid?
Mhm. According, yeah. I have to rely on Jay's expertise on this, and yeah, that's compared to what we've paid in previous for well reconditioning, he says that's right in line.
Yeah, this was the only tricky thing on the agenda, I think. Anybody have any questions about that? You recommend it?
I would.
All right, you're free to go.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, discussion of pandemic measures to be, I'll say, considered by the city of Fairhope. Mayor Wilson, did you want to lead into this?
Sure. The couple reasons why when the work session was closed is just to talk about, what we're going to do between now and, when this hopefully ends soon. Mike talked about the positions that it's kind of an unwritten rule that goes to the personnel board first. And then the other items are things that y'all like to see on the work session before it's added to the agenda. I'm totally fine not having a work session, and I'm totally fine reaching out to all of y'all to really, go into more detail, or one of the department heads to go into more detail if there's anything that's outside the budget. But those were my concerns, and why I thought we needed to have a work session is just to determine those things. And I can tell you some of the things that we've been doing, but most of this is in my mayor report that will be at the end.
Yeah. Well, I would ask you from our discussions earlier today that if you are wanting to postpone capital expenditures, that you let us know, because technically if it's been approved and it's come back on the agenda, then it's to be executed
Well,
unless we.
there's not that many of
Unless we
those,
rescind
but-
that resolution. It's got to be,
We'll go over some of those, because right now, all we did last week was look at things that, unless they were budgeted with restore funds, impact fees, or a grant, we've got to plan on not having the revenue we were going to have. And unless this is something that's super critical, I'm not talking about cutting, I'm talking about postponing.
Yeah.
And I think it's the only prudent thing to do right now.
yeah. I think that we need our treasurer to give us some.
She's at in every meeting, but yes.
To give us some, and you could send us an email when you can get some revenue projections, and, property tax shouldn't be impacted right now. You've got predominantly sales tax and lodging tax that are going to be.
It could be deferred. I mean, we don't know yet. There are 5 counties in the state where sales tax has been deferred, and right now, it just depends on how big this is.
Well, I was going to say, she could throw out, if we get 20% of sales tax projection, 50% of sales tax projections.
No, I can put something together, it's just that, and this is the same thing I was told the mayor, it's hard to tell right now because, everybody's buying a lot of stuff at Walmart, at the local stores, and so, those numbers won't come in until April 20th.
No, what I'm saying, let me stop you, Kim. What I'm saying is, we have sales tax projections for the year right now. Take them and cut them in half. And then take them and cut them by whatever, 20, 40, 60, 80%. And then it's just a guess, as you say. We won't know, but that'll tell us, it'll quantify, how much we think we might need to cut out of spending. Let's say we thought sales tax revenues would only be half of projections. Then we can say, all right, well, our total revenue is going to be this. We ought to look at slashing this.
Right. And
That's
it would
one
be
way
for
to do
the-
it,
the
until we
rest of
have
the year, the
hard
rest of
data.
the-
Yeah, and I'll put some scenarios together with the sales tax so y'all have some idea, to look at those numbers. Because we'll have a good 6 months that's come in, and I'll put that together later.
Yeah, and if we have historically, what sales tax is from, say, March through maybe July or something like that, because we know Christmas is a really probably a big time for sales tax. That's not in this budget year, but
We
You know, you
already
can't-
have that in a spreadsheet that we did for the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
It trends for several years back.
Yeah, because, you know, the council has to make the decisions, and we can take recommendations, but the council has to make a decision as to what's cut and what's not cut.
Well, we can't pay for it if we don't have it. So,
No disagreement there.
I mean,
but-
what we've cut so far is not as much as I wish it was.
Right.
We
Well,
definitely
what
are
I'm
gonna
saying,
need to
but
do
you're
more.
saying what we cut. I'm not
No,
sure
with
who
the,
we
with direct,
is.
I met with each director and we went through what could just be put on hold. We're not
Right.
cutting, we're postponing until we know more where we are. And that's, you know, what all businesses are doing too.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, if we've approved the expense of something and we need to hold off, then we need to somehow take an action to either suspend with all expenditures unless reapproved, or we have to take some action. What I'm saying is, you can't unilaterally go out and say, we're not going to do this until the council states that this or that's going to be done, because we're the spending authority.
I totally understand and would think that y'all would be very happy with what
Oh,
we've
yeah. No,
proactively done.
No doubt. I mean, no.
Because
think
it's
you're
going to
taking a
have to be
good
more.
approach.
I mean, it's going to absolutely have to be more than what we've already done. And these are line by line, looking at line by line items. And we've been in touch with, you know, the different companies. And I would think for the most part, you know, they're definitely working with us. They're all in the same boat.
Yeah. We need to get a list of what your recommendations are for that. Was there anything else? We've really got to get to these other closures or openings.
Okay.
Did you have
I
anything
mean,
else,
a lot of
Mayor,
this, like I said, I'm going over in
in your report?
the report.
Okay. Well, council, let's talk about what a lot of people in the city want to know, and that is, you know, what other measures are we going to take as a council? And this predominantly pertains to the closure of, you know, the pier, the beaches, parks, and when I say parks, that means all parks. It means ballparks. It means parks that have playgrounds, parks that don't have playgrounds. I think, you know, I think that's what the people of Fairhope are waiting to hear from us, come out of this meeting with some idea of what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. So I'll open it up. We'll start on my right. Councilman Robinson, thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are, and I'll make them as simply as I can. I think we were sort of given a direction by the governor last week as far as our beaches and our pier. And I think kind of what I've seen in place right now, which is kind of blocking off cars from parking down at the pier, and maybe even blocking off the pier itself at this point is probably, does that mean I'm out of time?
No.
You know, as sort of some necessary precautions at this point. I think, you know, we're all sort of in uncharted territory on figuring out exactly what to do, and that seems to be the most prudent thing at this point. As far as the pier and the beaches are concerned, as it pertains more globally, when you start talking about all the parks, you know, I've kind of gone through this several times today. I think when you're talking about the playgrounds that we have, I don't know that there's any safe way to truly disinfect those, and maybe we could, you know, and there's a lot of different scenarios you could use to kind of keep it, you know, clean, but I don't know that any of those are truly safe at this point. And so my recommendation would be to those playground parks to close those at this point. Now, going out further from that, you know, we are in a situation where people are being sort of forced indoors, and at some point they have to be able to go out for a variety of reasons, and I don't want to limit their access to everything, because at some point, you know, where do you draw the line in what they can and cannot do? I know we have walking trails in Fairhope. I think people should be able to use those. you know, some of our open air parks that aren't playground centered. You know, if I want to take a child and, you know, go hit baseballs at Valana, I think I should be able to do that. Now, if people are abusing that and there are 20 people up there in an organized activity, then we might need to shut it down because people are not using their common sense as far as what's the accepted practice right now. Same thing with Barnwell. I think that's, you know, somebody wants to go out there and throw the ball with their child to get outside because they've been cooped up all day, I think that should be allowed. But if there are 20 or so people out there doing it together, then you're sort of in the same situation.
Can I just preface this, because I was going to talk before y'all started talking about the things that we've already considered, and Chief, I'm not sure if she's here, but, okay. This, and especially when you go all the way out to Barnwell, it will be virtually impossible for them to monitor this. We really only kept an eye this weekend on traffic down at the beach, and honestly, everybody was being responsible. I think the publicity really attracted more people, and at the end of Sunday, there was no question that it was the right decision to do. Right now, it's very difficult. You're not going to make everybody happy. And I don't know how to gauge who wants this or who not, but does it really matter? We're in the business of keeping, you know, the citizens safe. And when you look at all of the trends, they all start out where we are right now. And we already know, too, that where we are is so low, and we know it's wrong. We just don't have the kits to test people. And I think that spike's going to happen soon because as test kits become available, you know, there's a lot of people that are sick right now that just can't get tested. So this is not a situation where you can say, I ask for forgiveness because we didn't, you know, socially distance or we had a number of people over what we should. It's a rapid spreading disease. And we are not asking anyone to not eat, drink water, and you know, have a roof over their head for a period of time. We're asking them to simply, you know, be mindful that in order for us to get over this and to get on the other side, we have to go over and above the call of duty. For me, I'd rather look back and say, you know what, we went overboard on that, than to look back and say, you know, if we only made some of these decisions sooner. And we opened the parks, and I am confident that opening this weekend was the right thing to do. If that article didn't come out and, you know, everybody kind of rushed and then got worried and really scared, we still might have it open for a period of time. But I just think at this point we're past that. And I hate it.
Councilman Robinson, you want to continue?
I was done.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna get all the cards on the
Right.
table and kind of see if we can't sort some of this out.
Yeah, I just haven't been
and
able
we
to
can hear
talk
from
to
the chief and
everybody. I did
hear
talk
her
to Jack today.
recommend. We're gonna hear from the public in the regular meeting, not in the work session. Councilman Conyers?
I would say we need to certainly close the pier, which we've done. I think blocking the road down there to vehicular traffic, I think that's a good idea. I think you got to close the parks with playgrounds. I mean, the Bluff, Knoll Park, Henry George Park, those types of areas that are really just pedestrian friendly, I would say, and I think people do need to still get outside and get some fresh air. If they're not walking there, they're gonna be walking up and down the streets. But you know, the baseball fields and stuff, I don't know. I mean, that, again, the mayor said that would be hard to monitor going all the way down to Barnwell. I don't have an issue with a father and son going out and playing catch, but how do you control it? And
I admit that this is,
but I mean, the areas that are, I guess, gated off, I would say you would need to close. The pier needs to be closed. But the areas, you know, open areas, I feel like should continue to be accessible by foot traffic for people that just want to get out and walk. But where they can easily maintain a social distance. I don't think you can do that on a playground. I don't think you can do that on the pier. it.
That it?
Is it?
Councilman Brown?
Yeah, I kind of, along the lines with Jay, you know, somebody else mentioned on Facebook about leaving the lights up downtown, kind of falls into this category. You know, are we leaving the lights up so people can get out and enjoy them, or are we telling everybody to lock up inside their house because they don't need to interact, you know, with anybody? So I think some of the measures that are being taken, you know, we don't know what's good or bad yet because the testing is not there, like the mayor indicated. And yes, it's a very contagious virus and people are going to die. But I think we can go too far as a government on draconian measures and telling people what they can and can't do. You know, allowing people you know, I heard discussion of possibly closing a boat ramp. I mean, that to me is about the most absurd thing I would consider closing. I mean, a family getting in a boat and going out on open water, I just don't see. And if that is being considered, I think we've just gone too far.
Basically, when you're talking about closing the beach, are you talking about pedestrian traffic also, just close it all together?
Well, I think that both of there's two things, and I can just say real quick, I think that everybody up here is probably in favor of barricading the street down the hill and also barricading the pier itself. But I think there is still maybe some doubt as to whether or not we should disallow foot traffic there. And if I just jump in front of you here real quick, if you allow foot traffic on sidewalks and you allow foot traffic on the sidewalks in front of the shops, why would you not allow foot traffic at least down at the bottom of the hill? But certainly maybe not on the pier, but there is a walking trail at the bottom of that hill to the south of the pier that would seem to be open to pedestrians. So there's all those options, Councilman.
And again, as far as closing it to traffic, I have no problem with that, but as far as closing to pedestrians, I think, as far as walking, I think we're gonna have to do that. And this is initially a work in progress. As you leave this open and people start misusing or congregating down there when they're not supposed to, it'll probably just get stricter and stricter. So it's kind of a condition of how the people react to what they really need to do, and when they do go outside.
Well, now, to one of the mayor's points and also to one of Chief Hollinghead's points is that, let's say that we allow a foot traffic to continue there, and then we have to close it to foot traffic in a few days. Does that result in an embarrassing situation, or is it a big deal? I mean, you know, are we not forward thinking enough because it's just a matter of time before you have to do that? But I'll even put up an argument and be the devil's advocate against that argument and say, well, if you think it's going to come to that, then you would issue a curfew and close all the sidewalks, right? I mean, if you're taking it to the extreme, then you would shut everything down, and nobody's advocating doing that right now that I hear. So if you're going to close down walking paths, then who's to say what walking paths you would close, right? Therefore, I would make the argument that if you're going to leave walking sidewalks open, you leave all the sidewalks open.
I have seen in Fairhope, my wife walks a lot, and she was remarking the fact that she was walking down the sidewalk with two gentlemen walking pretty far apart, and as they came together, they stepped out into the street, basically to keep this social distance. And I think Fairhope in itself is trying to do a nice job of keeping that social distance, of keeping away from the groups. It's just a function of, you know, you do need to get out. You can't just sit in the house 24/7. I found that out this past weekend. And you do need to get out and walk, but it's just a function of, you know, I think we do need to close it down to the traffic because, as I said in the radio show, when you're the only beach open in town, everybody's coming. And so I really feel we need to shut the beaches down to traffic and just have a walking, you know, deal down through the areas until if that messes up with them, maybe we'll have to step it up some more.
Well, like I say, if you're going to close the beach down to walking, then close down downtown sidewalks to it.
Yeah, I'm not for shutting it down.
No, I'm not either, but I'm just saying, to me, one's just 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, right? Any other points? I think I can summarize some of this. I did
I had
want
a
to get
couple
some
more, too.
feedback from Jimmy and Jay on the boat launch.
I think you'd leave the boat launch open. I mean, I think that's one of the few things people can do is get out on the water and
Okay.
enjoy themselves.
And,
Yeah, and let me say this, Chief, I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you about any of this, and obviously your input I would value greatly in deciding ultimately what to do, because ultimately a lot of the policing of anything we decide is gonna fall on your shoulders. And so, whether we're, in what I said, whether I'm proposing something that you think is truly undoable, I know the mayor has commented on some of that, and I don't know if anybody's agreed with anything that I've said, but I would value that input as someone who's going to be in charge of making sure any of these closures are followed or any of the limitations are sort of.
It's gonna be difficult.
I want to hold on a minute. Not yet. I hadn't even talked yet, so I just want your opinion on
Yeah,
your,
I'm sorry.
on the launch.
You guys can open it, I'm sorry I took it.
Yeah, that's okay. I want to, so the boat launch, you guys want to keep open?
Yeah.
All right, now, back to you two. Jimmy and Jay both mentioned parks with playgrounds, and they also mentioned Volanta. And y'all got an opinion on those?
I think it's gonna be hard to monitor, all the parks. Like Jay said, if it's a little kid playground with equipment everybody's jumping on, that's hard to keep
This-
sanitized, but if it's an open park,
The
Yeah, for-
CDC has already recommended playgrounds be shut,
Yeah.
so.
so.
Kevin?
I'd recommend shutting down all the parks with playground equipment.
So what I'm hearing is, I'm hearing some consensus. So Chief, before you speak, here's kind of what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that blockade the road to the pier. I'm hearing blockade the pier itself. I'm hearing allow walking there and walk, and also I'm hearing closing all parks that have playground equipment, but not those parks that do not. I'm hearing leave the boat ramp open. I'm hearing, let's see what else. I'm not quite sure what I'm hearing on Volanta. I'm hearing from Jay and Jimmy, maybe as long as it's a small group, and if I was gonna say if you were gonna put a number on it, I would say if you were gonna put a number on it and not close them entirely, I would say 10 or less, including adults that may be supervising them.
I don't see how you police it
Yeah.
personally.
As I say,
So
there's
I'm-
no way to
I'm-
monitor that.
I'm a
And it's
no
about
on keeping
distancing
that
too.
open. I mean, I hate to say that.
Oh, that's what I'm asking. I'm
But I
telling
would
you what
be
I'm
no.
hearing, so I'm trying to get some more feedback on that.
I just don't see how you can police it.
It's a big field, and if everybody's really far distance, and they were at the pier and park all weekend except Sunday night. I mean, when we decided that we were gonna, after I talked to y'all, or reached out to y'all, the 5 o'clock, just start getting people out, it was very crowded down there at that point.
Right.
And right now, we're gonna need police resources more and more as we get into this. I just believe that.
I understand, so I'm hearing you, so Jimmy, you're saying strongly you believe in closing the ballparks? Is that soccer complex?
I mean, I would say.
Volanta,
yeah,
soccer,
probably.
Barnwell?
I'd probably close everything except for the, walking on the sidewalks, Henry George Park, the Bluff area, the Knoll Park. I mean, those areas that are kind of open
Open.
and used by pedestrians frequently, I would probably keep those open. Boat launch, I would keep open.
Anybody have an opinion?
Yeah, I say leave all the parks open, leave the pier open to foot traffic, not the pier, but the South Beach foot traffic. You're not gonna be able to monitor everything.
Yeah, and I don't
Leave
necessarily.
some of it up to the people.
Yeah, I don't expect the police to be the Gestapo and monitor 100% of that all the time either. With the act of closing it, hopefully the majority of citizens are going to be good citizens and obey that. But Chief, I'll let you speak now. Got kind of an idea of where council is on this.
We monitored it all weekend. Saturday was a really good day. Like the mayor said, everybody was responsible, did what they were supposed to do. Sunday there was a lot of traffic. You saw that yourself. There was a lot of traffic on the pier, and I know you're talking about, shutting down the pier, not having any traffic on it. But what you're saying is foot traffic to go everywhere else. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so we'll have other than the vehicles, there's a lot of walkers. There's a lot of people that park even downtown or park on Fairhope Avenue and walk to the beach, or will walk to the pier. My fear is that we're going to have a lot of foot traffic once they know that they have the ability to go down there. And we're going to be back here revisiting this in a few days.
So how do you justify allowing walking everywhere else in the town but not down there?
This is a
That's the
very
part I'm hung up
difficult,
on.
and I understand. This is a very difficult decision I know that y'all have to make. There's not a right answer for it. I just know what I saw on Sunday.
But we
And
saw
it's
a
just-
different
and
dynamic.
it's just a
You could go
concern.
down there with your vehicle, though. There were vehicles, and there were hundreds of vehicles driving through the North Beach. I mean, because, I was there, and
Right.
I just think that if you limit it to vehicles, you're going to cut by 90% the people that go down there.
And I hope you're right. I do. I hope you're, and that what, we can what if all day, and we don't know what the
Right.
answer is. Just like you said earlier, we don't know where we're going to be in 2 weeks. We don't know where we're going to be in a week. We don't know what's going to happen.
We don't.
And as far as the police department goes, I mean, whatever decision y'all make, we're going to do the best we can with what we have. We've pulled extra people out of the SROs that are in the school. They're now on patrol. And, I mean, we're going to
Well, down there,
do the best we
basically,
can.
The only thing you'd have to patrol down there at the pier would be whether or not a vehicle went down there.
And, I mean, we're going to stop the vehicles at the top of the hill.
Right.
But
But
I
you're not
mean,
going to have a policeman station there. Certainly, people aren't going to move the barricades.
Can I just mention something too?
We're
that-
going to get back to you, Mayor. I'm going to give you another opportunity.
That's how I backed over that
I'll
one.
You
forget what
talking
I'm
about the
saying.
barricade at the top of the hill?
I'd rather be a conversation.
Oh, yes, we will. At nighttime, you've got to have visibility there. If
Yeah.
not, someone comes down that hill, they hit the barricade. Hopefully, they don't.
But now we're restricting, I mean, there's a playground down there, there's a beach down there they can't go to, I mean,
But if we barricade it, it's going to be barricaded anyway, so that's really not going to change anything. If you don't allow pedestrians, you still have that top of the hill barricaded, right?
Correct. We're going to have someone there
yeah.
regardless.
What I'm saying though is that I'm starting to talk myself into saying shut it all down there because you're already, you're, nobody can go to the beach, nobody can go to the playground, nobody can go to the pier. So you're left with having a police presence down there to monitor the use of this one side of walking trail, and is that really the best use of resources at this point in time?
And that was, you're basing nobody can go to the beach on your interpretation of the governor's order, right?
Correct. And just, and even if that's not exactly the way it was intended, I think it's good practice at this point. All right, sorry,
Well, the barricade's going to have to be monitored one way or the other. And if you have somebody there, monitoring that, they're going to be pretty much able to keep an eye on what's going on at the,
Well, our
Down at
goal,
the
our
bottom.
goal right now is just to have one officer there, because we don't have to monitor what's going on at the pier. The barricades there block the pier,
Right.
but if you have a bunch of people who are walking around who are going to be down there, we're going to have to monitor to make sure that they don't go over that barricade. We experienced this during 4th of July. And I know that's a completely different crowd, but
So how do y'all feel about at least leaving those upper parks open and accessible? And the trail from, runs from, basically from Fairhope Avenue all the way down to, almost to Jay's.
I agree with keeping everything open, that we should keep open in the other comments. And I would agree to closing the ballparks. I mean, if that's what the council desired. I mean, I could go either way on that. I just hate to see that you're going to have a father-son, mother-daughter go out there and be ran off.
But my question is though, is what would they be being run off from, at least as it pertains to the pier at this point? Because they can't get on the pier, they can't go down on the beach, they can't go down on that playground. So other than that the walking trail to the left, when you go down the hill, what else would we be blocking them from using at that point? Down there at least.
Well, I think the chief's saying that if you're opening that to foot traffic down there, then you've got to have somebody monitoring the pier to make sure they don't go over that
Yeah, no,
barricade.
I'm agreeing with the chief on this. I guess I'm asking Jack, what else are we blocking them from other than that walking down there? at least?
Well, the only other thing would have been if you interpret the beach as not being closed by the governor, it's the walking by the duck pond would be precluded by that. So that's quite a bit of distance. And my other thought is if you severely limit the places that people can walk, well, you're crowding the places that people do walk. And I just don't know that people are going to flock down there when they can't drive down there. I just don't know. I don't know that any of us know how it's going to turn out. I mean, we may be right, and we may be, in 3 days saying we need to close it to pedestrian traffic, but I'm not so, it won't be the first time I've been embarrassed. So.
Again, to me, this is an embarrassing deal. We're trying to work with everybody, work with the people, and if the people want to abuse this, then they're going to get penalized for what we can do, because we're trying to keep the community safe. And this is a working project, a project in progress that we're trying to work on as best we can. And it really depends on what the people, how they react to these different rules or different restrictions that they're being, put upon, I guess, for lack of a better word. But the objective is to keep people from congregating and getting together, and we're doing the best we can with it. So I don't see any form of embarrassment as far as trying to work with the people and then that particular portion being abused and having to shut that down too.
Right.
At a later date.
Council, what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to adjourn this meeting, and we can adjourn the work session. We need to get to our council meeting. We can reopen the meeting, and we can approve the minutes, and we can go straight into council comments, and we can continue this discussion. And Mayor, you're going to get an opportunity to speak as well. So let's go ahead and adjourn the work session because we need to get.
I think I'm staying here,
We need it. Yes.
right?
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the work session.